Welcome to part 2 of my overview of the kings of France. Today we'll be discussing the Carolingian Dynasty, a dynasty of Frankish kings who ruled Western Europe from the 7th to the 10th century. The term Carolingian, in medieval Latin karolingi, is derived from Carolus, which is both the Latin name of Charles Martel, Carolus Martellus, the forefather of this dynasty, and that of his grandson Charlemagne, Carolus Magnus, who is considered to be the most illustrious of the kings of this line. Last week we discussed how Pepin the Short arranged for Childeric III, the last Merovingian king, to ascend the Frankish throne in 743. But in 751, Pepin the Short deposed him and then crowned himself king of the Franks. This effectively ended the era of the Merovingians and started the Carolingian era. Pepin had two sons, Carloman and Charles, whom history would come to know as Charlemagne. Upon Pepin's death, the kingdom was divided between Pepin's sons. Upon the untimely death of Carloman, Charlemagne became ruler of the entire Frankish kingdom. Charlemagne was already nicknamed the Great during his lifetime and is regarded as one of the most important rulers of the West since the Middle Ages. The Frankish Empire was at its greatest during the reign of Charlemagne. He was crowned Emperor of the West by Pope Leo III on December 25, 800 in Rome. Charlemagne is nicknamed the Father of Europe, and both the Germans and the French trace the beginning of their national history back to Charlemagne. He died of pneumonia on January 28, 814. Upon his death, Charlemagne was succeeded by Louis I, who was nicknamed Louis the Pious. Louis was deposed by his son Lothar on October 7, 833, but he was restored to the throne on February 15, 835. Upon Louis's death in 843, the Benjamin of the sons of Louis, Charles II, succeeded his father. In 877 Charles died and the throne was taken over by Louis II, who was nicknamed Louis the Stammerer. According to history, Louis was a religious and peace-loving man. However, he quickly became seriously ill and died only a year and a half after his father in 879. His nickname, the Stutterer, possibly comes from Louis's poor health, which may have prevented him to speak normally. Louis was succeeded by his sons Carloman II and Louis III, who ruled together at first. When Louis III died in 822, Carloman II became the sole king of the Franks until his own death on a hunting trip in 884. It was suspected that Carloman was murdered, but there is no historical evidence to back this up. As Carloman also died without offspring, he was succeeded by Charles III, who was nicknamed Charles the Fat. Charles was a grandson of Louis the Pious, but due to failing in battle against the Normans, he was deposed in November 887 and was succeeded by Odo of France. Odo was crowned in Compiègne in 888 and later that same year he was crowned a second time at Reims. Odo died in 898 and was succeeded by Charles III, who was a son of Louis the Stammerer. Charles was nicknamed the Simple because he was always plain and simple in communication, not because he was of low intelligence. Charles had been excluded from the succession of his brother Carloman II in 1884 because of his young age. In 922, Robert I of France obtained the throne after a coup. Charles the Simple was deposed and Robert was crowned in Reims on June 30, 922. Charles, however, did not give up easily. He gathered an army in Lorraine and advanced against Robert. In 923, Robert's army defeated Charles in battle, but Robert himself was killed at the battlefield. Charles was imprisoned and Robert was succeeded by his son-in-law, Rudolf I of France. Charles the Simple would remain a pawn in the power struggle between the great nobles until his death in 928. Rudolf died in 936, also leaving no offspring. He was succeeded by Louis IV, who is also known as Louis from overseas. Louis was a son of Charles the Simple. He was only 3 years old when his mother took him across the English Channel after his father was imprisoned, hence his name. Upon the death of Rudolf, Louis was called back to France and crowned king. In actuality, he did not have a lot of power, but he showed a surprising ability to win the respect of the ever-arguing nobility. However, his reign was mostly characterized by conflict, particularly with Hugo the Great, who was the Duke of the Franks and Count of Paris. Louis died on his birthday as a result of a fall from his horse during a hunting party and was buried in Reims Cathedral. Louis was succeeded by his son Lothar, who was crowned in Reims on November 12, 954, after refusing to share the throne with his brother Charles, who was instead granted the territory of Lower Lorraine by his uncle Otto I. As Lothar was a minor when he ascended the throne, Lothar first reigned with Hugo the Great as guardian and then under Archbishop Bruno of Cologne. The beginning of his reign was occupied by wars against the Dukes of Normandy. Around 978, Lothar got into a conflict with Emperor Otto II over Lorraine. Consequently, with Hugo Capet at his side, Lothar crossed the river Meuse and plundered the Aachen royal palace. In the autumn of that year, Otto counterattacked and managed to reach the river Aisne, where he was halted by Hugo Capet. In 980, a peace treaty was signed between the two princes. In the aftermath of the war over the Duchy of Lorraine, Lothar came into conflict with the House of Ardennes, more specifically with Bishop Adalbero of Reims. Lothar accused him of high treason, but before it came to a verdict, the court was dissolved by Hugo Capet. 2 weeks later, Lothar died at Laon. Lothar was succeeded by his son Louis, who became Louis V and was nicknamed Louis the Do-Nothing. Louis was given this nickname by medieval chroniclers because he only reigned for 14 months before he fell off a horse and died. Louis died without leaving any children, leaving Charles of Lower Lorraine entitled to the French throne. But due to the intervention of the now exonerated Bishop Adalbero, and with the support of others of the nobility, it was decided to choose a new king from the midst of the assembled nobility. Hugo Capet, the most powerful nobleman in France at the time, was appointed as Louis' successor. This officially ended the reign of the Carolingians and the Capetians became king of France. Join me next week for an overview of the Capetian dynasty. Thank you for watching.